Krista McBeath, back with another segment of the Retirement and Financial Focus. Again, this month we are sitting with Chad Ritchie of Ritchie Law Firm, and we are discussing the keys to creating an estate plan that fits you. So Chad, thank you again for being with me.
Thank you.
Last week we talked about a little bit about what an estate plan is and what the main purpose of it is. So if you haven't seen that, you'll probably want to go back and review that video as well. So this week we're focusing on what happens to someone's assets when they die.
Yep. So that's probably the number one question and the number one reason why people get their estate plan done. And to understand what happens to your assets when you die, you have to understand what kind of you have two different kind of assets when it comes to estate planning. And so there are probate assets and non-probate assets. Probate assets are assets that you own in your individual name only that do not automatically transfer upon your death. And because of that, we have to look at your will, or if you don't have a will, Illinois law, to see where those assets go, who you've named to be the beneficiaries or who inherits those assets. And then in order to get those assets transferred, you have to actually go through this probate process, which is a court process. It takes about 9 months to a year to get done. And so most people would want to avoid probate if they possibly can. And so we want to turn those into non-probate assets through various ways. Non-probate assets are assets that do automatically transfer upon your death. And the number one way you can make a probate asset into a non-probate asset is by naming beneficiaries. So assets that have beneficiary designations are non-probate. They automatically transfer upon your death.
And those would be like your 401ks, your life insurance, your IRAs, and even your investments that are not IRAs or 401ks. Those can still pass outside of probate, but you have to fill out a transfer on death document.
Right.
So, okay. I know one of the questions I get a lot from my clients in the planning process is, should they, everybody's worried about their home in the event that they would need to go to the nursing home.
Right.
And I receive the same question over and over is, should I put my home into my children's name?
Right, right. So that's an interesting question. What happens to your home and how do you protect your home, or how do you transfer your home and avoid probate? So the number one way that you can do that in Illinois is through what's called a TODI, a transfer on death instrument. This is a deed-like instrument, a deed-like document that I prepare as an attorney, which describes the house, the legal description of the house that you own, and it allows you to name beneficiaries for that home. So when someone dies, or if there's a couple, a married couple, that you can say, upon the last of us to pass away, we name the following beneficiaries. And you can name your children, you can name a charity that you want to give your house to, or a trust that you have as well. So by having a TODI in place, you avoid that whole probate process that we just talked about.
So that's really great information. So the TODI will definitely help them avoid probate on the transfer of the home. How does that impact, again, if somebody's wanting to do planning for, Medicaid spend down or protect their home in the event of a nursing home stay?
Sure, sure. So when you talk about Medicaid planning or nursing home planning, one of their main concerns is what happens to our home. And so that's a completely different conversation. What we first talked about with the TODI is a way that you can avoid probate for the transferring of your home when someone dies. Medicaid planning is different. So that's where we talk about all the Medicaid rules and so forth. So a TODI would not protect your house from Medicaid or from the government eventually. So that is the home is exempt if you have a spouse that's living in the home and another spouse that's in the nursing home itself. But it eventually could be considered an asset at some point. So there's other things that we can do to try to protect the home with Medicaid planning.
Okay, so it's going to be best used maybe whether you're married or single, but you want your children or a charity or somebody to be able to sell that asset with ease upon your death.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, well that's great information. Next week we're talking about how do you plan for a mental incapacity in your estate plan. So make sure you tune in next week. Have a great day.